So I wrapped up that last segment and I went back to work, and I realized that I keep talking about how my goal here is to apply bench rest techniques to two different things: long range, higher impulse bench rest target rifles, and of course hunting rifles, that greater segment of the population. Because there's people out there, there's a number of them I see on the inner tube now that are advertising that they have quarter-minute rifles, hunting guns, and in most cases I flat out don't believe them. Get this set a little further out here. I went the wrong way. That's typical. So what I'm going to do today, I cut my work short and came back in here because I just recorded a segment and I was in my disjointed way trying to explain we're taking the vibration principles that have been fixed, that have been worked out already, and we're going to apply them. So let me get going here. I'm going to try to outline a little more explain a little more boy, how do I clarify a little more the things that are important to me, the goals that we're setting out to accomplish here. I got sidetracked because I got a paper here with a bunch of notes on it. For all you YouTubers, what this is it shows how many gigs will fit on a 16 gig. I record my YouTubes in 20-minute segments, and I'm always afraid. I leave a card in there for weeks and weeks, and I figure I can get. I used to use 128 gig cards. I tried to. For anybody who wants to try do this stuff, I'll just throw this out. I'm a dullard. I'm the furthest thing from an electronics guy, and all I know how to do is build stuff and make stuff and experiment and do cool things. I'm not a YouTuber. I'm not going to jump up and down here and make you all happy. I don't want any fans. I'm not here for fans. I'm not here for. In fact, I might even start cranking the music back on because this is how I live. And I'm finding out that it's only, all YouTube does is when you play music, they demonetize you and they scold you and they slap your fingers and they have all kinds of reasons why it's a bad thing. But anyway, I'm trying to figure out, I was running some numbers here trying to figure out how much I can fit because I've tried all these different size cards. A 50 gig card, this goes back to another thing, I don't edit. This stuff is all raw footage. So if I got a 50 gig card and I start talking and I burp or fart or screw up or my teeth fall out or my lisp gets too bad so that I'm not understandable. I'm trying hard to overcome my speech impediment here, but that aside, I've decided to, I went out and bought a gross of 16 gig cards. They seem like kind of the size to get a few segments on, but bottom line is, this is my little cheat sheet about, I was trying to figure out how many gigs I can get, and I'm going to put it down here on my recording assembly so that I can, but I swapped out, I shut down, I went out, went to work, and I realized I need to define what it is. I mean, I've still got a pad of paper out here. I need to define what it is that we're going for. So I'm going to aim this down, and we are going to spend some time defining what I feel is important in a bench rest gun. I'm going to put some more light on, see if that screws everything up. Okay. First thing, of course, is just pure raw accuracy. Accuracy is number one. But now here's why that's not the be-all and the end-all. You're going to have to trust me that says accuracy. because I wrote it too small. I have in an earlier segment a while back, I showed you a Remington 700 that Jim Borden had gone through and turned it into something that was all that. But it's still a 700. It still functions like a Mack truck. It's still like an old column shift Ford pickup truck. It's a Remington, for crying out loud. There's only so much you can do with a Remington. So accuracy, I'll write it bigger here and see, I'm going to have to set a bar here as I go through this. There, you can read accuracy, basically. Accuracy is number one, but it's entirely possible. That old Remington that Jim Borden put together shoots like a house of fire. I put my 30 cal HBR barrels on there. I've got a couple of them, and I've got several more. I actually have 4, I guess. Jim built a couple. I built a couple. I've got another higher impulse 308 hot rod on it. It shoots fine. I finally decided to turn it into a silhouette style gun because standing up on the hind feet and cranking, I put a magazine back in it. It's now a repeater. It's now a stand up on your hind feet and shoot it kind of gun. But the accuracy that it exhibits is fantastic. It has tremendous accuracy. So, that said, just when I'm going to say accuracy trumps all, I'm going to modify that by also saying that it's not everything. Not for hunting, not for target. Accuracy is number one, except that there are places where you can take a sacrifice on accuracy if you can get repeatability out of your setup. This is important. The fact that a gun will shoot accurately once, twice, 3, 4, 5 times does not mean that you can get behind and go ka-bang, lang, 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 lang 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 times. Generally at a 100-yard match or a 600-yard match, you're going to go out and shoot something called sighters. Sighters, you've got time. You've got 10 minutes. Or a certain amount of time anyway, depending on the venue, that you're checking out. Got some oil. I've been mounting a thing over here for one of my vices, and I got some. Anyway, get up here in the light and I can see that there's a shiny something. So, accuracy is of prime importance, but there are times when you can lose. For instance, a winning 100, 200-yard bench rest shooter will most often say the winning is in the ags. It's not in shooting the small group of the day. They would rather have a gun tuned with a little bit of vertical in it in most cases, because that's where you're coming from horizontal to vertical, that you get a wide enough window that you know you can stay in it through the event. I'm talking out of turn here, but there are some that feel that way. Anyway, sometimes it's better to lose a tiny bit of intrinsic accuracy because you can work the gun. Let me just back up and say that let's forget about what's known out there in the industry. Let's just say that accuracy is not the whole end of the equation. The reason I took that Remington that Borden built and put it into something that doesn't require repeatable sliding on the bags is because I set it up as a hunter gun with a 2.25 inch wide forend, and I couldn't get it to repeat in the bag shooting group with it. It would, working that heavy Remington action was just too much. So even though that action is accurate, that setup is accurate, I can make now, and I'll use Jim Borden's example because that's safe because he's known for being able to do this. I have some Remington 700 actions that make it in the accuracy department. But then you step up to functionality. You've got to be able to function it quickly. You've got to be able to run it through. A couple of things wrong now. Let's just stick with something I know most about, I guess, which is a 600-yard setup. A lot of this will also apply to a 100, 200-yard setup. First, you got to be able to get the accuracy. Okay, that's pretty easily attained, though. You can even get that with a Remington. Next thing I think that you have to get is the ability to cycle it quickly and easily without disrupting what I'm calling your bag setup, which is the sandbags that it's sitting on. If you're putting too much torque on the handle, you're rocking it, it rounds out the front and it screws up the rear. So you want to be able to flick it open, flick it back, load, which brings us to the next thing. A Remington is right only. That means that your left hand is doing nothing. You could be over here scratching your belly button, and the right hand opens the gun, pulls it back, in some cases flicks the shell out because you don't want that big Remington style ejector beating your case up. But let's just say we have an ejector. So we eject the round. Now we've got to go pick up another round, reach around still with that right hand, jam it back in there, make sure it's in place, come back to the bolt handle, close the thing. All of this is just a bunch of monkey business with the working hand, and this left hand's doing nothing. Hence the left load, right eject systems. So for speed, I'm going to call it speed because I think that's a fair word to use. You've got to have accuracy with speed. You've got to be able to cycle the thing, get rid of the old shell, get in the new shell. And if you're a right-handed shooter, one of the ways to do that is to throw the cases in with your left hand. Next thing, so to get the accuracy and the speed, typically 6 ppc glued in. Now the other thing is, in this equation, I have to be able to swap barrels out quickly and easily. A barrel could fail during a match. But again, in the PPC paradigm, that's solved because you've got a glued in, 6 ppc impulse is fairly small, so 70 foot-pounds of torque required to make the assembly solid. So now, glued in, you reach in with an action wrench, lightly clamp the barrel, spin it off, spin a new barrel on, wind it up to 70 pounds, your 6 ppc glue in at 70 foot-pounds is accurate, and the speed is based on the type of action that you use. So you've got a winning setup right here. You've got your accuracy and your speed, but it's in a glue in. Now we step up to something larger. Let's just stretch our paces and go right up to, a 1,000-yard 300 WSM. That's actually a pretty light round. That's no kind of monster compared to some of the stuff that I do. And then we also want to make it a repeater. That weakens the action big time. That changes the whole paradigm. But even if we hold that aside and we say, okay, we're still dealing only with the situation we started with, which is a target rifle. Single shot, bam, bam, it's got to be able to work quickly. So we take this same action, we move it up to the 300 WSM. Now, if we glue it in and we do all of this stuff, we can get it to work. But I'm going to reach around. I just looked up. I got an inch 350 shank barrel sitting here. I'm sure that it is inside of its wrappings. That's a big pig. You get up to this bigger recoil impulse, and all of a sudden this 70 foot-pounds is inadequate. The joint tries to come apart. To increase this 70 foot-pounds on your standard barrel assemblies that you can just buy off the rack at Walmart, or Lester Bruno's, which is the Walmart of, I shouldn't say that. This is Lester's a hero of mine. There's nothing. If somebody could take Walmart as meaning that I call, no, he is a place where when I need a barrel, I call Bruno. I look on their website and they go. I order a lot of barrels. That's all fine. But the problem is that due to the fact that we've voted ourselves into a serious pickle here. Our supply lines are all screwed up, and it's as bad in the gun industry as anywhere else, maybe worse. I've got barrels in the pipeline right now. This happens to be an inch 350 that's laying here. I just looked up and saw it, so I do have at least one that I can go after, and that's kind of good, I guess. But the simple fact is that to get inch 350 shanks is a heartache. And the reason for the inch 350 shank is to go up past the 70 foot-pounds. We need to get up into, so to maintain this 300 WSM recoil impulse, accuracy, and speed, we have to take this and get up in the 150 foot-pound range, which means big shank. Big shanks are hard to get. 1.350 is my magic number for the size of the barrel shank to get the abutting surfaces big enough to take 150 foot-pounds. So that's where I'm stalled out. That's where this whole thing stalled out. I put together my Nuvo, and I found out that, okay, I also wanted to go through how I'm going to weight this thing and turn it into a 6x47. Use the same, because it's an expensive action. And I want to be able to take that same stock, screw a 6x47 barrel on it, and go out and shoot 600 yard with it. Why not? Why would it have to? I build this stuff. I don't have to make it into a single purpose thing. Why not test it in both platforms? Well, my problem was that 70 foot-pounds is, in my opinion, not enough to lock up a 308 size cartridge. So, 100 foot-pounds. Now I ran into the problem of how do I get the thing to tighten down. So, I wanted to say what we're looking for here is number one, accuracy, but number two, a way to speedily get into your next shot without messing everything up. Custom actions are good for that because I have a number of actions with rollers, a 90-degree bolt stroke with a roller in it is very, very smooth, very, very slick, very, very melanited actions. That's a big change. A lot of things that come together. But where we're going, the reason we're doing all this is because I'm trying to get away from the big shank barrels. I want to be able to call Bruno, call barrel supplier, and get 150 foot-pounds on an inch 2 shank. So that's what this whole, there are other reasons, there are other things that are important here, but what this all devolves to, my nutting assembly, see, I was building inch 350 nuts. I thought I had this all solved when I said, okay, we can nut them, we can go to 150 pounds, bam, 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 this whole thing's going to fall in line. Well, then the nuts failed miserably on me. I don't believe a nutted 300 WSM is worthy. So, fast accuracy, the ability to change barrels with a good conventional action wrench, and to use a good conventional action wrench, you have to be able to remove the scope, the front base, and get a good an external action wrench on there. Only an external action wrench can apply the 150 foot-pounds the way I want it to. So, speed, accuracy, left load, right eject, manual eject so that it doesn't ding up the cases, and removable bases. And a removable action from the stock. That's what we're going to be building. We're going to be building things that you can take apart like a Remington 700, stick an action wrench on, take a barrel off, screw a barrel on, wank it up to 150 foot-pounds, screw it back into a stock, and go out and shoot zeros. It really has to be, I call it sub-quarter minute, but in the end, for it to be anything like a PPC, it has to be capable of shooting under a tenth of an inch, under a tenth minute at 100 yards. So that will explain. I've tried to just stop for a minute and explain the drive behind what it is that I'm trying to do, because as I build these, we're going to get a little bit odd in our methods. It's not ways that the gunsmiths that are out building winning guns aren't going to get anything from this, because they know how to build a winning gun for a fair price. There are things about this, especially in the prototyping. I'm an 07 FFL, so prototyping is something I do and I can do. Prototypes will take time, but everything that I'm putting together, I'm doing stuff that can be adapted to the assembly line, so that hopefully if I can make some advances in this, we'll have stuff that can be used cost effectively down the road, even though I'm wasting tons of time. That's why I'm documenting my time, because if this works out, it could change the accuracy paradigm for the good.